It's pretty safe to say that Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State are a solid top 3 in the country right now. I think it's also safe to say there's a pretty good debate for the number 4 spot in the college football rankings. And this 4th place is worth way more than the Flint, Michigan Mega Bowl, even though that was important. Got Jackie Moon a job in the NBA. Now, you can make the argument that 4 to 5 teams could earn that spot right now. But in my eyes, there is a clear-cut leader for the final spot in the college football playoff slot. That's Clemson. Now, we always say that the most dangerous teams are the ones that can beat you in multiple ways. When Clemson's defense had an off day, thanks to the witch that is Sam Hartman in that offense, DJU, for the first time since he's been there, looked at home in the pocket and on the field. Now, I doubted him, as did others, and it is only one big game, but he looked like a totally different guy. And I know Wake Forest isn't exactly the steel curtain on defense, but he was anticipating, throwing off platform, running effectively, and most importantly, he wasn't panicking. Now, we know Clemson will be fine on the defensive side. They're too talented and experienced not to be. But the reason I have them at 4 is this year they have a semblance of balance. Wake Forest was a big pass test for DJ, but he has another one on the horizon with NC State and a secondary that's very well put together. Now, there's a long way to go. There's a lot of games to be played. But for right now, give me the Fighting Dabos at number 4.
Well, speaking about dropped, you did have some people drop in the AP Top 25 rankings, but that number 4 spot, it's the one we're always going to be talking about, or at least that we have been talking about lately, because I think you're seeing Ohio State obviously catch their footing, looked really clean against Wisconsin. It seems like the chemistry and the health of the wide receiver room is getting back to where it needs to be. And then Georgia and Alabama. I know Alabama struggled a little bit on the road at Texas. Georgia at home against Kent State. I don't want to put too much thought into Georgia struggling against Kent State. I think it was just one of those things. I mean, look, I'm going to go ahead and say this too. I think there's a very high possibility Brock Bowers can end up getting an invite to New York with the amount of stuff this guy's doing.
How cool would
you
that
could have Stetson Bennett and Brock Bowers the way that it's going. But for that 4th spot, you could say USC right now. I know there's questions up front, but you watch them beat Oregon State in a different way, in a defensive way, and they came back late. I mentioned Clemson. You look at Tennessee, I think it's a team that you can make a case for, having that win against Pitt on the road and then beating Florida at home and just kind of the way that they've looked and the versatility of that team. And then obviously Michigan. I know it wasn't pretty against Maryland, but we got to understand who was out as well. Donovan was out. I mean, you had some guys in places that could have helped J.J. McCarthy out, but you did win the game. And I want to make sure we do give little Tua and Mike Locksley some credit there from Maryland. And I've never understood why Maryland struggled in football, because I've recruited the DMV and I know how much talent is out there, even up front, even on the offensive line and defensive line. You can find cats all across the coast, and then the DMV there between Maryland, Washington, and D.C. and stuff like that, or Washington, D.C. But Cone, who right now, and I know you graduated from Michigan, you tricked them for 4 years there.
Still tricking them.
Still tricking them. Who do you have at number 4 right now?
Okay, so you guys know how I feel about preseason and midseason polls.
But it's about time. I don't think midseason polls
more useless than a hot dog straw. But
yeah.
That's not to say it isn't still fun. Okay, it is still fun. And those 3 spots that we were talking about at the top, I do think sort of have been solidified right now. Again, until one of these teams struggles or maybe the Buckeyes find a way to lose one in the middle of the season. And that's what makes college football great. Like we were saying the other day, we got away with 3 MAC school or 3 Power 5 schools go down to Georgia Southern, to App State, and to Marshall, So until something like that happens, I think we are talking about that 4 spot right now. And to me, there are 3 teams that you can put in that 4 spot right now. You could leave Michigan there right now, like we were talking about, and I think that's where the AP does have them, because at the end of the day, they did beat Maryland. They beat a good Maryland team. And if you're going to struggle against Maryland, do it on a week when Georgia struggles with Kent State, when Oklahoma loses, and when Clemson goes to overtime against Wake Forest. My problem with Michigan was every team's going to have a game in a season where they struggle on one side of the ball and you have to, scrape a win. They struggled on both sides of the ball. Yeah. That's what alarmed me about Michigan. 2, to me, you could go ahead and you could put Clemson there at number 4 with beating a good Wake Forest team on the road, and your quarterback played well. To me, that defense gave up way too many points to Wake, but you can say, look, Sam Hartman's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, especially in the ACC. You can move Clemson up there. Or 3, to me, which I'm sort of leaning towards is Tennessee right now.
Really?
Blaine and I were talking about this. I think that you could put Tennessee in that 4 spot. And you have people looking and saying, well, that's, you'd have 3 SEC schools in the top 4. To me, I'm just looking at the best football team.
Yeah,
it
doesn't
matter
what conference.
A road win at Pitt in overtime. You have a home win now against Florida. And to me, they're playing great on both sides of the football. I think Tennessee could take that 4 spot.
Man, I think, honestly, I don't think you're crazy there, because if you look at, like you said, the way Clemson played against that Wake Forest offense, Tennessee does have better players and a really good quarterback as well in a system that operates very quickly. It's just, it's funny because typically we see, like, for example, these teams that go on and go undefeated or go on these runs and have a chance to win national championships, there are those couple games where their best side of the ball struggles. I don't think it's a stretch of the imagination at all to say Clemson's best side of the ball is defensively. So when they struggled against a Wake Forest, it's kind of like the inverse of, you remember 2019 LSU and Joe Burrow, I always use this example. They go down to Auburn and struggle on offense. Defense bails them out. Go look at 2020 Bama. Go look at any team that's won a national championship or had a chance to win a national championship. There is a game or 2 or maybe even 3 during the regular season where their elite side of the ball wasn't clicking on all cylinders, and you had to lean on the other side to get bailed out. I think another team we have to start throwing in this conversation is Penn State.
Oh, I thought you'd say Southern Cal.
Who has, well, USC,
that's what I was gonna say.
Again, yeah, but I look at Penn State. Who has better wins? I know Purdue hadn't gotten off to the hottest start. They just survived FAU, but that's still a good road win. Week 1, new season, new phone, who dis, going out there and winning. You go and beat a bad Auburn team but on the road, but it is an SEC team on the road, and you have experience at quarterback, a really good secondary, and the offensive line is seeming to figure it out. Now you play Northwestern, which is basically a scrimmage against the JV, the way it's been going lately for Northwestern. Hell, they can't even beat Southern Illinois right now. Shout out to the Salukis. But Blaine, you like USC.
Well, I had to. Well, yeah. Well, I had Tennessee, but I think USC could. I think Tennessee's the 4th best team in the country, but I think USC could get there because they have the easiest road. I mean, you have to beat Utah on the road. That's what you have to do. I mean, you go through the schedule. This is who they got. Arizona State, that's a win. Washington State, that'll be a game, but I do think USC is better than them. You go to Utah, that'll be a great game, a high-scoring game. You go to Arizona, you're better than them. You're better than Cal. You're better than Colorado. You're better than UCLA, and we see what Notre Dame is.
Yeah, I'd watch out for that Arizona game on the road, though. I know Arizona just went and got absolutely plastered by Plow. We're going to talk about one of our top performances there with Big Game
You have
Boomer.
a conference championship.
But yeah, you do. But this Arizona team, they're going to sneak up and beat somebody they're not supposed to.
I don't think it'll be USC, though.
I mean, if USC offensively plays like they do, and Delora
great
and
teams
Arizona
can do what? Great teams do what?
Can win in multiple ways.
Win in multiple ways.
But how many times can you expose yourself to that? I'm not saying they're not going to win that game. They'll probably be over a 14-point favorite, I would think, in that game if it keeps going how it is. But Arizona does have the capability of sneaking up on somebody. I'm just making that point.
Well, I do think Tennessee's the 4th best team in the country.
Yeah.
I think they're the most complete team, realistically. Tennessee knows who they are. Kentucky, I still want to see more from that offense. I mean, Michigan, Maryland's a good football team, but worries me about Michigan the way they're getting beat on the defensive side. There's no pass rush. I mean, they couldn't get to they got to him late a couple times. But the pass rush, I mean, you lose Hutchinson, you lose these guys, it's different, and you can tell. I'm still worried about a couple teams that you see in there. Just the Clemson, I need to see consistency out of DJU. I got to see it. That's great. You go put up a bunch of points.
That's what I'm saying.
And yards
The jury's
against
still out.
Wake Forest defense. You really don't know. If you want to be that team, we'll find out this weekend when they go play a complete NC State team. Devin Leary's kind of getting back to who Devin Leary is. And that defense for NC State is one of the best in the nation, hands down, from defensive line to linebackers to safeties. So I'll be interested. I think Tennessee's the 4th best team, but I think USC will have the easiest road.
Yeah, this will be the biggest challenge for DJU yet this season from a secondary standpoint. NC State, they can mix up coverages. They've got guys with experience. They're long, they can run, and they're physical. The windows that were there against Wake Forest, and DJ put some balls in some tight windows, but those windows are going to shrink. The only difference is it is at home, and we can watch Dabo look goofy running down the hill like Blaine always talks about.
Stop doing it.
I'm glad you...
It does. Does it not make anybody else nervous watching him run down the hill?
Stop.
You're one accidental, slip up or
from going viral.
From going viral in the worst way. You start rolling down that hill, so that's like falling off Pike's
You're not
Peak,
running.
man.
You are sprinting.
Yes, you're again. I love you showing off your athleticism, but I think maybe we need to retire that while you're ahead. You know what I'm saying? Because the first time you eat it and you go down the hill, you won't get hired at Alabama after that. They can't hire you after that. That's just the truth. All right, guys, thank you all for joining us. If you haven't, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel for more great content just like this. We have a good time. We're going to keep the wokeness out of sports and the politics out of it too. So make sure you check us out. Isn't that right, Cone?
That's right.
Blaine, what do you think?
For sure, 100%.
100%.
112%.
That's a really high number.
Top
That's a
tier.
really high
Gas
number.
pedal.
And you should make sure and subscribe.